Air Florida Flight 90, a Boeing 737-222, took off from Washington, bound for Florida in January 1982 during a heavy snowstorm. Seconds after takeoff, ice accumulated on the wings, and insufficient thrust caused the aircraft to lose altitude. The plane hit the Memorial Bridge, which connects Washington to Arlington, before crashing into the Potomac River, killing 78 people. Before hitting the river, the Boeing struck 7 vehicles crossing the bridge, causing casualties and injuries. The impact destroyed part of the structure and scattered debris over the ice. Only 5 passengers survived, rescued by civilians and emergency teams who braved the freezing waters. The accident led to changes in de-icing and flight safety protocols. Final moments of a man before being sucked into the left turbine of an Airbus A320 at a European airport. He had approached the still operating aircraft near the landing gear when the fatal accident occurred. The runway was immediately closed, halting flights and operations for nearly 2 hours while teams conducted rescue and forensic work. Jesse Lewis, 6 years old, was photographed shortly before a heroic act that would mark his name in history. On the morning of December 14, 2012, he wrote, "I love you," on his mother's car. Hours later, during a shooting at his school in Newtown, Connecticut, he yelled for 9 classmates to run while the attacker reloaded his gun, saving lives before losing his own. Ann Faber, 25 years old, took this selfie and sent it to her boyfriend during a bike ride in the Netherlands. Shortly after, Michael Panhuis collided with her bike using a scooter. When she threatened to call the police, he destroyed her phone and forced her into a forest path. 2 weeks later, her body was found in an isolated area. The last images of Brazilian tourist Juliana Marins, 26 years old, were recorded after she fell during a hike on Mount Rinjani in Indonesia. Abandoned by a guide and without proper assistance from local authorities, she remained injured and unable to move in a remote area, facing extreme cold and dehydration until she did not survive. John Allen Chow, an American missionary, took this photo aboard a boat as he approached the isolated North Sentinel Island in an attempt to convert the local tribe. In November 2018, he paid fishermen to take him into the island's restricted waters. The next day, he was seen being attacked and dragged, and his body was struck by arrows. Melinda, only 17 years old, appears alongside her half-sister Valerie, moments before boarding Flight 901 in New Zealand. The sightseeing trip to Antarctica would end in tragedy when the aircraft crashed into Mount Erebus, killing everyone on board. She was also recorded in a brief video inside the cabin, capturing her last moments alive. Minutes before the crash, the camera recorded passengers on Flight 901 as the aircraft headed toward Mount Erebus. The disaster in 1979 left no survivors, and extreme conditions forced rescue teams to temporarily bury the bodies in the snow to protect them from scavenger birds circling the area. On a trail near the railroad in Utah, 3 friends, Essa Ricker, Kelsey Webster, and Savannah Webster, smile for a selfie with a train in the background in October 2011. Moments later, the teenagers were struck by the approaching locomotive and died on the spot, turning the image into a record of their final moments. Merlin Septiana, 20 years old, posed for photos on the rocks of Semeti Beach in Lombok, Indonesia, while strong waves crashed nearby. During high tide and rough seas, an unexpected wave struck her with force, sweeping her into the ocean in front of friends. Despite immediate searches, her body was found only hours later. The last security image shows Kendrick Johnson, 17 years old, walking through the gym of his school in Valdosta, Georgia, in 2013. The next day, his body was found inside a vertically rolled-up gym mat. The case generated great controversy, with official investigations pointing to an accident, while family and supporters alleged possible homicide. One of the last images of Air India Flight 171 shows the moment the plane took off from Ahmedabad, India, captured by security cameras. When the photo was taken, both engines failed, and the aircraft crashed into a nearby hostel. The impact killed everyone on board except one survivor, as well as multiple victims on the ground. Alison Parker, a 24-year-old journalist, is seen conducting an interview for the WDBJ7 network on the morning of August 26, 2015, in Moneta, Virginia. During the live broadcast, she and cameraman Adam Ward were surprised by an armed former co-worker who opened fire on them and the interviewee. The attack, aired on television and social media, resulted in the immediate deaths of Alison and Adam. Patrick E. King, a 26-year-old Cameroonian midfielder, was photographed on the field during a Romanian league match in Bucharest on May 6, 2016. Only 7 minutes after entering the game, he suddenly collapsed without contact with other players. Despite medical efforts, he died shortly afterward, suspected of cardiac arrest. Influencer Chase Philandro posted his last photo on Instagram on June 26. Just over a month later, he was found dead in his NYU dorm room. In addition to being a content creator, he was the lead singer of the band Just Add Water and a student at the Tisch School of the Arts. His family launched a GoFundMe to build a memorial in a park he loved. The last known photograph of firefighter Gary Box of the New York City Fire Department in September 2001. The image shows him crossing the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, responding to an unprecedented emergency call. Moments later, he headed to the disaster site, where he lost his life during the rescue operation. In Serra do Intendente State Park in Brazil, Leone Barbosa and Tacia de Almeida took their last selfie together at Bocaina Waterfall. Minutes later, a sudden tornado and flash flood hit the area, sweeping the couple into the water. Separated from their tour group, they were carried by the current. Their bodies were found the next day. High school students from Danwon, South Korea, recorded their last images aboard the MV Seawall ferry in 2014. Wearing life jackets, they followed instructions to stay in the cabins while awaiting rescue. The vessel quickly listed and sank, and only those who ignored the orders and escaped on their own survived. Steve Curry, 71 years old, sought shade under a park sign in Death Valley, known for its extreme heat. Hours later, he collapsed and did not survive the 121 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. An amateur photographer passionate about desert landscapes, he had visited the site many times to capture the relentless effects of severe weather. Protesters dance and smile in Tiananmen Square, Beijing, in the spring of 1989, amid an atmosphere of optimism and peaceful demonstrations. The scene took place shortly before the military crackdown that would result in hundreds, possibly thousands, of deaths. Many images like this were quickly censored in China, becoming rare records of a moment of hope before tragedy. Fredzania Thompson, a 19-year-old aspiring model and pregnant, died in 2017 in Navasota, Texas, while posing for photos between two train tracks. Seeing a freight train approaching, she tried to step aside, but unknowingly moved onto another track where a second train was coming at high speed from the opposite direction. With no time to react, she was struck and killed instantly. In 1988, in Northern Ireland, British Corporal Derek Wood was photographed moments before his death. He and colleague David Howes accidentally drove into the funeral procession of an IRA militant. Recognized, they were surrounded by a crowd, forcibly removed from their car, and brutally killed in one of the most violent incidents of the conflict. A bride in Brazil died minutes before her wedding when the helicopter taking her as a surprise for the groom crashed in São Paulo in December 2016. Rosemary do Nascimento Silva, dressed as a bride, planned to fly over the guests before landing, but the aircraft crashed just over half a mile from the venue. The accident was filmed, showing the final moments in the air. Her brother, the pilot, and a pregnant photographer also died in the crash. Xenia Ignatieva, a 17-year-old Russian, was known for seeking daring selfies in extreme locations. In this photo, taken in 2014, she balances on the edge of a bridge. Seconds after the shot, she lost her balance and fell onto 1,500-volt high-voltage cables, dying instantly. The case became a global warning about the risks of extreme selfies. Dorsa Ganci and her younger brother Daniel were photographed sitting together at the airport before boarding Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 on January 8, 2020. The plane was shot down minutes after takeoff, killing all 176 people on board. Passengers on American Airlines Flight 5342 captured a light-hearted moment before takeoff. Just hours later, the aircraft collided with a helicopter during the flight, resulting in the total destruction of both vehicles. There were no survivors among the occupants. 2 weeks after celebrating his marriage to his longtime girlfriend, Liverpool FC striker Diogo Jota died suddenly at 28. Known for his dedication on the field and humility off it, the player had just returned from sports commitments when he suffered the fatal collapse, leaving the soccer community in shock. Wayne Spears, photographed during the Tennessee floods on August 21, 2021, was trying to hold on to a partially submerged barn as the current advanced. Moments later, the structure was swept away, and he disappeared in the turbulent waters. The historic floods destroyed homes and left dozens dead. A doorbell camera captured James Rael moments before attempting to force entry into his ex-girlfriend's house. He remained at the door for several minutes, ignoring warnings to leave until he tried to break in. The young woman's father, fearing for her safety, shot James, killing him instantly. Andrei Retrovsky, 17 years old, poses balanced on the edge of a building. Known for posting risky photos on social media, he practiced roof-topping, a dangerous trend among young people seeking extreme images. This photo was taken only 10 seconds before he lost his balance and fell in 2015, tragically ending his life. In St. Petersburg, Pavel Kashin, a famous Russian freerunner, performs a stunt on top of a 16-story building. Known for high-risk maneuvers, he constantly sought to push physical limits. In 2013, during this performance, he lost his balance and fell, tragically ending his career marked by extreme feats. In one of his last photos, Al Capone appears with his wife May and children in Miami at Christmas 1946. The mobster, already weakened by syphilis contracted in the 1920s, refused treatment out of shame. A few weeks later, he died at 48. Doctors said that, at the end, he had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old child. Amy Winehouse, visibly distressed, cries and hugs herself during her last concert, held in Belgrade, Serbia, in 2011. Booed by part of the audience, she repeatedly forgot lyrics and the location, singing off-key. The performance, marked by confusion and emotional fragility, would be her last before dying a few weeks later. Karol Walenda, renowned circus artist and leader of the Flying Walendas, was famous for crossing tightropes at extreme heights without safety nets. In March 1978, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, he was walking 121 feet above ground between two buildings when strong gusts of wind and imbalance caused him to fall fatally. In July 2023, in Brazil, Garan Maia let his 11-year-old son, Francisco, pilot a twin-engine Beechcraft Baron 58 while drinking beer in the cockpit. Shortly after taking off from a dirt runway, the aircraft crashed into a forest on the border between the states of Rondônia and Mato Grosso, killing both. The accident shocked the country. Austin Stefanos and Perry Cohen, both 14 years old, were last seen leaving Jupiter Inlet, Florida, heading into the Atlantic during an approaching storm in July 2015. More than 25,000 square miles were searched by the Coast Guard. Weeks later, the boat was found adrift, but the bodies were never recovered. In September 1978, Pacific Southwest Airlines Flight 182 collided mid-air with a private Cessna over San Diego after communication errors with the control tower. The aircraft entered a fiery free fall and crashed into a residential area, killing 144 people, including 7 on the ground. It was one of the worst air disasters in United States history. Captain Corey, a young British content creator, recorded his last video on July 7, 2023 for the Crack in the Box channel, interacting with followers and showing objects he loved. Just 2 days later, on July 9th, he died at 17 after a long battle with hypoplastic left heart syndrome, a rare congenital heart condition. Kim Wall, a Swedish journalist, is seen boarding Peter Madsen's UC-3 Nautilus submarine in August 2017 for an interview in Copenhagen. Hours later, Madsen murdered Wall aboard and attempted to conceal the crime by dismantling the vessel. The case gained worldwide attention and resulted in Madsen's life sentence. Olesia, 31 years old, from Kazakhstan, poses smiling on the edge of a cliff in Turkey, enjoying a moment during a trip. After this photo, she lost her balance and fell from a height of over 100 feet, dying at the scene. The accident occurred at a tourist spot known for being dangerous to those who get too close to the edge. Jimi Hendrix was photographed the day before his death at 27, drinking tea next to his iconic Fender Stratocaster. The next morning, on September 18, 1970, he was found dead in London from asphyxiation caused by inhaling vomit. The legendary guitarist had given his last public performance just 2 days earlier, joining Eric Burdon for an improvisation at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club. Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel, during a mass rally in Tel Aviv on November 4, 1995, moments before being shot by an Israeli extremist. The event, marked by speeches in favor of peace, ended tragically, with Rabin dying shortly afterward in the hospital. Timothy Treadwell, known as the Grizzly Man, and his girlfriend Amy Huguenard were killed and eaten by a grizzly bear in October 2003 during one of their expeditions in Alaska. The animal is believed to have been one Treadwell called the Big Red Machine. An unsettling detail is that an audio tape recorded the entire attack, but its contents have never been released. In Little Rock, Arkansas, a young woman takes a selfie with her boyfriend in the background, pointing a gun at the camera. The image, posted on Snapchat with the caption, "Strap Chat," was taken shortly before a tragedy. Later, he used the same gun to kill her, a crime that gained significant media coverage. A smiling selfie in the Italian Alps in 2022, sending the message, "Look where I am," to friends. Minutes later, an avalanche released from the Marmolada Glacier struck the area, killing him and 10 others. The tragedy was caused by high temperatures, which accelerated ice melting. At Sniliv Airport in Ukraine, a military jet loses control during an airshow in 2002 and dives toward the crowd. The aircraft crashed into spectators, killing 77 people and injuring more than 500, including children. The event, intended to showcase air power, became the deadliest disaster in the history of such displays. Dr. Jamie Zimmerman, physician and journalist, took this selfie while on vacation in Kauai, Hawaii, just minutes before a tragedy. While walking near a cliff, she slipped on wet rocks and was pulled into the sea by waves. Despite rescue efforts, Jamie did not survive and died before being removed from the water. The photo captures the moment a Russian Lancet kamikaze drone dives onto a Ukrainian multiple rocket launcher. With a final speed of up to 186 miles per hour, there is virtually no time to react once seen. This type of attack, increasingly common in the war in Ukraine, is used to destroy moving or well-protected targets with high precision. Benazir Bhutto, former Prime Minister of Pakistan, is seen waving to supporters in Rawalpindi during a 2007 rally. Minutes after this photo, she was struck by gunfire, and then a bomb exploded near her vehicle. The attack, which also killed dozens of people, occurred during her election campaign and deeply shook the country's politics. 2 days before her death, Queen Elizabeth II was photographed at Balmoral Castle, smiling, standing in front of a lit fireplace. That day, she officially welcomed Liz Truss as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in what would be her last public act. At 96 years old, with over 7 decades of reign, the monarch still showed cordiality and firm posture. Jane Wecker, famous for her performances as a wing walker, is seen atop the wing of a biplane during the Vectron Dayton Air Show in 2013. While performing a loop maneuver, the aircraft lost control and crashed in front of hundreds of spectators. The impact instantly killed Jane and the pilot, Charlie Schwenker, tragically ending her career. Diana, Princess of Wales, is seen in the back seat of a Mercedes-Benz on the night of August 31, 1997, accompanied by bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones and driver Henry Paul. The photo, taken by paparazzi in Paris, was captured minutes before the car crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. The vehicle was being chased at high speed by photographers, which contributed to the fatal accident. Ozzy Osbourne, heavy metal legend and former Black Sabbath vocalist, died days after this image was taken. With a career spanning more than 50 years, he became one of rock's most influential and controversial artists, known for his striking performances and eccentric lifestyle. His death marked the end of an era for millions of fans. On Hat Rai Lay Beach in southern Thailand, tourists watched the arrival of a massive wave, part of a devastating tsunami. In December 2004, the Great Indian Ocean earthquake, with a magnitude of 9.1, generated waves over 100 feet high that traveled at about 500 miles per hour. The disaster killed more than 230,000 people in 14 countries and was detected as far as the coast of Africa. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is seen delivering a speech in Nara, Japan, in July 2022 during a campaign event. Minutes later, he was hit by 2 shots to the back, fired with a homemade gun, and collapsed on stage. Abe was taken to the hospital in critical condition, but did not survive his injury. Gilles Leclerc and Marianne Labanan posed for a selfie inside the Bataclan Theater in Paris, minutes before the November 13, 2015 attack. The couple was waiting for the band, the Eagles of Death Metal, to perform when 4 armed terrorists stormed in, killing 90 people and injuring many others. Marianne survived the attack, but Gilles was among the victims. Jolie Callan is photographed from behind as she looks at the scenery in Chehaw State Park, Alabama, in 2015. Shortly after, while hiking with her ex-boyfriend Lauren Bunner, she was pushed off a cliff about 40 feet high, dying from the fall. The photo, taken by Bunner himself, captures her last moments before the shocking crime. Passengers on Japan Airlines Flight 123 took these images on August 12, 1985, shortly before the aircraft crashed into Mount Takamagahara in Japan. The structural failure killed 520 of the 524 people on board, making it the deadliest single aircraft accident in history. One survivor reported that the descent lasted about 32 minutes, during which many wrote farewell messages to family. Hulk Hogan, wrestling and entertainment icon, was seen only 6 days before dying of cardiac arrest. Known for his legendary career in WWE, he starred in historic matches and became a cultural symbol of the 1980s and 1990s. Outside the ring, he appeared in films and TV shows, maintaining a loyal fan base until his final days. In February 1959, 9 Soviet explorers disappeared while crossing the Ural Mountains. This photo, considered the last showing all of them alive, depicts them advancing through a heavy snowstorm. Days later, they were found dead, scattered outside tents that had been cut open from the inside. The case became known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Inside Uruguayan Flight 571, passengers smile for the camera moments before the tragedy in the Andes in October 1972. The aircraft, carrying a rugby team, family, and friends, crashed after encountering bad weather. Of the 45 on board, 27 survived the impact and spent 72 days isolated, enduring extreme cold, avalanches, and hunger until the final rescue. Jeremy Worthy was live streaming on Facebook while kayaking in Bateman's Bay, New South Wales, Australia. During the trip, strong winds and opposing currents made it difficult to return to shore. Without a life jacket and exhausted after fighting the tide, he began calling for help on the live stream. Unable to overcome the water's force, he drowned, recording his final moments on video. Michael Rockefeller, heir to the famous American family, traveled to New Guinea in 1961 to study and collect artifacts from the Asmat culture. In this image, he is seen interacting with locals and navigating a river. Shortly after, his canoe capsized near the coast, and he disappeared while trying to swim to shore. Despite extensive searches, his body was never found, and his death remains a mystery surrounded by theory. At the exact moment a hot air balloon touched high-voltage wires in Carterton, New Zealand, in 2012, the initial spark was already visible. During the ride, contact with the cables caused a fire that spread quickly through the basket, making escape impossible. All 12 people on board died, marking the worst balloon accident in the country's history. Carter Christensen, 17 years old, took a selfie atop the Flatiron in Boulder, Colorado, and posted it on social media shortly before dying. He was attempting to climb the famous rock formation without any safety equipment. Moments later, he lost his balance and fell from over 100 feet, suffering fatal injuries. Andrea Mazzero appears alongside his girlfriend, Sarah Brigante, on a trail in Rozzo, Italy, posing in front of a panoramic view. Shortly after, his phone fell near the edge of a cliff, and as he tried to retrieve it, he lost his balance and fell about 660 feet. Rescue teams found his body hours later at the bottom of a valley. Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, was photographed inside a car leaving the hospital and returning home just days before his death in April 2021 at 99 years old. He had spent nearly a month hospitalized for heart problems and an infection, including surgery to correct a pre-existing condition. This was his last recorded public appearance. Leonard Siflete, an Australian soldier, appears bound and kneeling moments before being beheaded in World War II. A member of a special commando unit, he was captured in New Guinea during a reconnaissance mission. The scene was recorded by a Japanese soldier and became one of the most famous execution images of the war. The last recorded image of Pope Francis shows him visibly weakened, participating in a public appearance on the Vatican balcony just one day before his death. Despite his physical frailty, he remained present before the faithful, showing his commitment to the Church until the end. Nicholas Mevoli, a professional freediver, is seen surfacing after reaching 236 feet deep at Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas during a 2013 competition. Despite signaling with his thumb that he was fine, he suffered a blackout seconds later, still at the surface. Mivoli lost consciousness and did not survive. Takashi Yokoyama, a 25-year-old Japanese driver, suffered a fatal accident during a race when he was thrown from the rear of another car. His vehicle struck the metal beam supporting the starting lights, causing immediate fatal impact. Jack Ruby is photographed at the exact moment he shoots Lee Harvey Oswald, accused of assassinating President John F. Kennedy the day before. The crime occurred in front of live television cameras, shocking the entire country. Ruby, a nightclub owner, fueled conspiracy theories and prompted the creation of the Warren Commission, which concluded Oswald acted alone. During a televised rally in Tokyo, 17-year-old Otoya Yamaguchi stormed the stage and attacked politician Inajiro Asanuma with a wakizashi. The photograph captures the exact moment Yamaguchi delivers the fatal blow in front of the audience and cameras. The assassination caused a huge political and social impact in Japan in the 1960s. Esther Schwab-Franchman, photographed in Amsterdam and Nazi-occupied Netherlands in December 1942, holds her newborn son Moses in her arms. Both would be killed at Auschwitz in April 1943, only 5 months later. Esther wore the yellow star sewn onto her clothing, a symbol imposed by the Nazis to identify and segregate Jews during the occupation. Joseph Stalin appears in what is believed to be the last known photo of him, taken during an official meeting in Moscow. The next day, he was found unconscious in his residence, victim of a stroke. Despite medical efforts, he remained unconscious and died on March 5, 1953, at 74 years old, ending nearly 3 decades of leadership in the Soviet Union. In December 2012, singer Jenny Rivera smiles alongside her team aboard a private plane, capturing the moment for Instagram. Minutes after the photo, the aircraft crashed in northern Mexico during a flight from Monterrey to Toluca due to mechanical failure. The impact killed all 7 occupants, marking one of the most tragic losses in Latin music. Regina K. Walters, 14 years old, is photographed moments before being murdered by serial killer truck driver Robert Rhodes in 1990. She and her boyfriend, Ricky Lee Jones, were traveling to Mexico when they accepted a ride from Rhodes. The photo, taken by the killer himself, shows Regina in an abandoned barn, the place where he took her life. In Santa Clarita, California, Paul Walker is seen getting into a Porsche Carrera GT driven by his friend Roger Rodas during a charity event in 2013. Minutes after leaving the venue, the car crashed into a tree and a light pole, causing an explosion and killing both instantly. The recorded moment became the last known image of the actor alive. Aliadana Houghton, a music star in the early 2000s, is seen boarding a Cessna 402B in the Bahamas in August 2001 for a flight to Miami. Minutes after takeoff, the aircraft crashed due to excess weight and mechanical problems. The impact instantly killed Alia and the other 8 people on board. On a busy street in Omagh, Northern Ireland, a father carries his son on his shoulders near a parked car. Minutes later, the vehicle exploded, killing 29 people and injuring more than 220. The attack, carried out by the Real Irish Republican Army in August 1998, destroyed buildings and vehicles, marking one of the deadliest episodes of the conflict in the region. Former Japanese Prime Minister Hideki Tojo, military leader during World War II and considered responsible for numerous war crimes, appears in this photo just hours before being hanged as part of the sentences of the International Military Tribunal on December 23, 1948. John Lennon signs a copy of the album Double Fantasy for Mark David Chapman at the entrance of the Dakota Building in New York. Hours later, upon returning home with Yoko Ono, Lennon was shot by Chapman, who had been waiting at the scene. The crime, which took the life of the former Beatle at 40 years old, shocked the world and marked the history of music. Ayrton Senna, three-time Formula One world champion, was photographed moments before his last Grand Prix in Imola, Italy in 1994. Racing for Williams-Renault, Senna started from pole position. The race was marked by tension after practice accidents. Minutes after the start, a high-speed mechanical failure led to the crash that took his life. On the New York City subway platform, a man tries to climb up from the tracks as a train approaches. In 2012, Ki-Suk Han, 58 years old, was pushed after an argument and could not escape in time. The incident, photographed by a reporter, caused controversy because the image showed the moment before impact, leading many to question why the photographer did not attempt to help him. Brian Epstein, manager of the Beatles, was photographed days before dying of an overdose in 1967. Considered the fifth Beatle, he was responsible for transforming the band from a group of young men from Liverpool into a global phenomenon, managing their image and contracts. His death, ruled accidental, plunged the Beatles into a turbulent phase. In 1885, Dennis Dilda posed with his wife and children before his execution by hanging. Convicted of murdering a man who worked on his farm, Dilda insisted on taking this last photo as a keepsake for his family. The execution took place in front of about 800 people, a common practice at the time. Political leaders from Ghana attend a public ceremony 4 days before the crash of the military helicopter that would kill them and 6 others. Among them were Samuel Sarpong, Vice President of the National Democratic Congress of Ghana, and Edward Oman Boma, Minister of Defense. The accident occurred during an official mission in 2015,